the regional school committee to order, and we have a remote participant, so we will do roll call attendance. Irv.
Present.
Whoa, great. Pepper.
Bridget.
Present.
Jennifer.
Here.
Deb.
Here.
Anna.
Here.
Sarah. Oh, William.
Here.
Sorry. Sarah.
Here.
And Sarah Bess in here. So first, I want to thank everybody so much for coming out tonight. There's going to be a lot of information, and so how tonight is going to go, we will have a presentation of the budget, which will be roughly a half an hour-ish. And then we will have a few committee questions if we have things we need clarification on. But most of tonight is about hearing from hearing from the public and what you have to tell us. So we will get started. All right. Oh,
All right, good evening. Am I on?
you are on.
Okay.
This is not.
Good evening, everyone. I am going to ask that for the remote participants as well as the participants in
Okay.
the audience this evening
It's
to
a meeting I'm on my phone. I'm gonna go
to
get my
please
headphones
remain
so I
on
can hear you.
mute,
But when you need my attention.
especially the remote participants. We do have a lot of information to share. We want to answer all of the questions, but we want the information that we have to be heard, so that if your questions are answered, you can get the information if you need to formulate new ones. Thank you to the school committee for giving us the opportunity to present this evening. And this is our proposed regional budget. What we're going to do this evening is Shannon is going to walk through the overarching numbers and overview. Then we're going to have a presentation from the leadership of the high school, presentation from the leadership of the middle school, and then I will wrap up, and then we'll open up for questions from the committee as well as public comment. And just again, I do ask everyone to please remain on mute or to limit the sidebar conversation so that we can get the information shared and we can have a very robust discussion this evening. So, Shannon?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
No. Amherst Media, can you turn the volume up a bit, please?
Yes, okay. I will attempt to, I will try to talk loud. Can you hear me better now?
A little bit.
He's coming from up there, right?
I don't think it's an Amherst media thing. I think it's wherever the speakers are coming out.
We're going to have to yell at us,
You have
Shannon.
to yell a
Okay.
bit.
Okay. So I do just want to say that on the Zoom, we only see a white screen behind you, so we can't see the PowerPoint. So the PowerPoint is listed on Board Docs if anybody on Zoom wants to follow along from that PowerPoint. So I want to start off with the first part of this presentation is what is our snapshot of our total budget and the different buckets that we have. So on this first slide, we have our actual amounts from 22 to 24, our 25 budget, and our proposed 26 budget. You'll notice at the top here, the 26 proposed budget versus the adjusted budget right now is still exactly the same until we have the finalized reductions. We did not put them in the line by line until they're finalized. So that's why those columns are matching. So I just wanted to point that out. So here in the top section is our payroll accounts. And this is the bulk of our expenses. In these payroll accounts, we had made assumptions for our salaries of where we project that they will be. One of our biggest unknowns here is our largest bargaining unit is up for negotiation. So we had to make an assumption of where we think those might land. For the bottom section with our expenses, we have one of the most notable expenses that we've talked about is our transportation contract was ending and we had to go out to bid for that. We did receive that contract back. We had originally projected an increase of 10%, and the lowest bidder came in at approximately 14%. However, we renegotiated that contract so that it would stay at 10% for FY26, but then the out years had a higher percentage of how we apportioned those costs. The good news is, you know what those costs will be for the next 5 years, and we can budget accordingly. We had an increase in our health insurance, and that was projected to be at 13% originally. However, we were notified that the increase would be 19.92%. And after the AIC meeting, they came up with some plan redesign and was able to bring that down to 16%. And that's, I just want to note, that's a cost that we incur as a district, but that also means that employees' insurance will go up due to this increase. So it's pretty drastic. It's really large, and it's unfortunate that it's at this percentage. Another increase we had that's notable is our liability insurance increased significantly. That's in the other insurance benefits section on here. I just want to point out as well that our Hampshire County assessment, what we originally projected, did come down. So there was some savings there that helped offset that increase in the liability insurance. We have about 200,000 in special education stabilization funds that we are going to use to offset an intensive needs placement that we have, so that is not affecting the operating budget, but school committee does need to vote in order for us to utilize those funds. We've had a significant increase in our legal fees over the past few years. So we had increased what the budget lines for those expenses would be. And at the bottom in FY25, you can see a reduction of 500,000. I just want to point that out, that was ESSER applied to the budget, reducing that. And in FY26, there are no ESSER funds anymore. Lastly, some of the things that we bake into this budget is school choice. There's 850,000 school choice applied, which essentially reduces one of our budget lines and within the salaries. And we've also applied circuit breaker and some IGA funds to our special education costs. So with that, our total FY26 budget is $37,889,297, and that's before any reductions. So that's the total amount of our operating budget that we would need in order to be fully funded. So on the next slide is our revenue sheet for the region. And this slide has been presented before and at our Four Towns meeting. So I want to run through this kind of quickly. The operating budget in the first blue column, you see the 37 million that I mentioned on the previous slide. Then you come down to our revenue, and we have our Chapter 70 projection that comes from the governor's budget of where how much Chapter 70 aid we will receive. Then we move to other transportation reimbursement. We slightly increased that. I don't know if the reimbursement will be as high as we've received it in the past, but it is increased because we believe our total dollars for what we are requesting reimbursement will be higher than the previous year. Our Medicaid reimbursement, we're keeping steady, a slight increase in charter reimbursement, and our interest revenue. You see a large percentage increase from FY25 here. That's because our interest rates were much more favorable than we did in the past. And this 70,000 increase from FY25 is still a conservative number, and we feel comfortable with this number. We have our support from E&D at a total of 880,000. And that brings us down to what would it cost each town using our regional agreement method to determine the assessment to fully fund our schools. And you can see the percentages for each town based on what's in our regional agreement. I just want to note here, though, that right next to total revenue, right above the assessment, it says 2.51%. So our revenue is severely lagging behind our expenses, only 2.51 increase in our revenue here. So if you go to, one more thing I want to say is we have been told that these percentages increase are unattainable for the town. So it's our job to put forth a budget that school committee can vote for and that the towns can approve. And it's very difficult. So if we can't use our regional agreement method because that's unattainable, what do we use? So I don't want to go into the assessment method too heavily. However, the 4 towns meetings were previously recorded, and if anybody wasn't able to attend, I would invite you to follow along those videos. I don't know where they're posted, but I know they're posted somewhere. So if we move to the bottom of the second blue column, this was the last model that we presented at 4 towns. I don't know if this will be the final method. It is up for discussion still. I don't know where it'll land, and it's subject to change. This gives us an overall budget increase of 4%, and it apportions out the costs differently than we have in the past. And like I said, we can, if you go back to the previous 4 towns meeting, it discusses that more, and I don't want the meeting to be completely about this, so I will save some of that for now. It's an overall budget of 4%. How the pie is divided up between the towns in this scenario is up to is subject to change, or potentially more. I don't know. So if we have a budget of 37.8 million and we only receive an overall 4% increase, what does that mean? It means our deficit is 1.39 million, basically 1.4 million. So how do we meet that? Where does that leave the schools, and what is the impact? So for the next slide, I'd like to turn it back over to Dr. Z and the principals to discuss what the impact of this is.
So on this present slide, what you're going to see is the suggested budget adjustments, possible additions and reductions that we made shifts and changes within the district for. And when we started this process, I believe we started a bit earlier this year, in September with our first 4 towns meeting, walking into where the deficit may be. At that point, we're facing upwards of 3 million in the region. The team has come together since September and been in between monthly meetings, working to reimagine what we could do, one, and as a district team, how we can restructure and shift. So for example, in the central office, there's consolidation of positions that occurred, which resulted in savings. We're still looking throughout the region to determine how do we provide just at least, I'm going to say, the basic programming, but programming that will allow us to provide our students with what we need. This is not the ideal situation, but as Shannon projected and prepared, we're facing currently a $1.4 million deficit within the region. And so the principals, the leadership team, all of us came together, and the idea was, how can we reimagine what we have within the budgetary restrictions that we are faced with? So each school leader will present on basically what that's going to look like, or projected to look like, for the upcoming year. So we're going to start off with Principal Sadiq for the high school.
Tom Sadiq here from high school. First, I do have to say how terrible it feels to have to be here again to talk about budget cuts. And I'm sure all of you feel the same way, and everybody here in the room and everybody watching, but yet here we are again. I know that feel we have to come up with better ways and different ways to figure out how to fund our schools so that we're not in this position again and again. I did receive a ray of hope earlier from an email that Dr. Z sent out about Project 2011 plus 21. A project that's designed to redo the formula that the state uses to fund public schools, registered for the March 4th meeting, which I think is good, but I think that this community, I think we could be doing a lot more. I mean, it's hard for me to fully understand. Obviously, honestly, it's a little bit enraging and baffling on how being in this community where we hear reports about the town having surplus of millions of dollars, there's still millions of dollars set aside for the library. We have a private university with $1 billion endowment and the flagship university of the state here, and yet and still here we are with budget cuts. And I know this state has the pilot program, this acronym Payment in lieu of taxes. I'm not sure why we haven't received more funds from these multi-billion-dollar entities that have been labeled as nonprofits who buy up property in town, and we can't use that property tax to fund our schools. But I know I'm hoping that's something that people look into more, that school committee and others. I'm sure there's many people here who would be happy to be involved and try to advocate for more of that money to come. I'm not sure how much the property is worth that UMass and Amherst College own, but I'm sure if we were able to get even a portion of that tax, we wouldn't be sitting here having a budget conversation. And there might be money left over to fix some of the potholes in town as well. So I think it would be helpful for everybody involved. So, with that being said, we'll talk about the least favorite part of my job, dealing with the budget cuts. And just a reminder, so these, you can see what's written on the screen, and all these, well, not so much these here, right, with the graduation venue. We tried to look for as many different ways to save money, because a little bit here and a little bit there equals being able to save somebody's job. And that's really what this is all about. You're going to see, you're not going to see names up here, but they do represent people, hardworking, dedicated people who day in and day out give their all to our students. And we continue to ask those of us, people who aren't cut, to do more with less resources. And the morale, it just doesn't seem to a lot, I'll speak for myself, it doesn't seem to me that, again, that this town values education as much as they proclaim to be, at least the people who control the money do. I believe all of you care about education, or else you wouldn't be putting in your time and energy to do this job, but there's other people in this town who control the money. They're not, until they give us more money, aren't going to be able to convince me and a lot of other people that they really value education. All right. So one of the changes you can see we made is we moved from Mullen Center, the Fine Arts Center, saving us about $10,000. Of course, it was nice to be able to Mullen Center, just have anybody who wants to come, alums would come back, people with their families would come. We were able to give most families who wanted, just about all the families who wanted tickets to go, but a lot of their friends weren't necessarily able to go. But again, trying to save money everywhere we could. And with the stipends for summer work, so to try to offset that, we do have the 2 days in March and the 2 days in May that school starts 2.5 hours later, because we just test the 10th graders. It's still happening, even though with the vote about MCAS. So we do give that time to, a lot of the proctoring is done by our paraeducators and special education teachers. And so the regular education teachers get that time to do some curricular work, and that then saves money in the back end, because we don't use that money for the summer work. I don't know if people have questions, or if you just want to go through all of it, or?
Just go through all of it and then we'll.
All right. So clerical consolidation. So again, this is not the first round of budget cuts. So we've already lost clerical staff. Not all admin at the high school have assistants, and that work that was done, MCAS and 504 coordinating and scheduling, has been moved. Other clerical folks have taken on that responsibility. So now with one less clerical person, they'll have to take on even more responsibility. And that's, everything that happens, communication, letting people in, answering phones, returning emails, helping with transcripts, again, figuring out the MCAS scheduling, AP testing, scheduling all that. There's so many things that they all do. And again, asking hardworking people to do even more now. And our paraeducators are invaluable to us. They provide so much support to all of our students. And again, some of these people are some of our students' favorite people. So not only do I have to tell them that they're not going to have a job, the students, some of them aren't going to have some of their favorite people in the building any longer. And we do have some paraeducators that are one-on-ones to some students and have to provide support because of their IEPs, individual education plans, and we'll try to fulfill those legal obligations. But again, we won't have as many people to support our students. And our students now, especially since the pandemic, are more needy than ever. So it's not a surprise, not hearing anything new. In science, so we did have one of our science teachers retiring this year, and you can see that half of a FTE was absolved in that. And that right now, the class size in science are just over 21. Continued budget cuts, it's not going to be able to stay the same. So the quality of education that the students in our town are going to receive, and we all know the bigger the classes, the more challenging it is to make sure every student is able to get what they need from that teacher and paraeducator who may be in the classroom. And another set of cuts, so with world language, so for Chinese and Latin, we're no longer going to offer level 1 at the high school. Some of those classes are small. To those students who take those classes, I mean, they're super valuable, and for some of them, it's what they look forward to. It could be their favorite class and lead them to open up a lot of opportunities for them. There are still, students can start languages in middle school, at least for now, I believe. But again, with the budget cuts year after year, this is going to get bleaker and bleaker unless we do something to change it. So you can see that if a student wants to take a start at level 1, they can't start in Chinese or Latin at the high school. And then our counseling staff, you can see that's not only our school adjustment counselors, our school counselors, also guidance counselors. We have career and college counselor in our BRIGHT program for students who've been out extended amount of time, and it helps to transition them back into school. We have 10 currently who fall under the counseling umbrella, and we're going to be reducing that by 2. And again, the students who they serve, our school counselors, our guidance counselors, they serve all the students. They help to get their schedules going. Their caseloads are going to get bigger. All the counselors remaining, their caseloads are going to have to increase. So school counselors now are going to have to provide school adjustment counseling services to students who have the school counseling in their grid. And we know nowadays with the pressures from social media, the pressures, all the challenges that students are dealing with in their lives at home, they bring a lot of that into school. And these counselors, along with, again, everybody else who's in the school, it is valuable to try to help them to transition from the home life outside of school to school, inside of school, and make that a priority. And with the fewer people, it gets harder and harder for those of us who are still here to do that and to do it effectively. And we have a program, Prep Academy, is for regular education students who are struggling, and it's a period during the day currently taught by an English teacher and a world language teacher. And now we're adjusting the teachers who are going to be doing that, and the reduction in the Prep Academy program, along with a grant that was designated for a reading program in English, and then also the .33 English reduction equals 1 less English teacher for our students. And so people looking at this may not think that this is a lot of people are getting cut, but every single person who we lose makes all of the responsibility in the job a lot more challenging for all of us. And our students don't get the services, education that they deserve, and that we try to pride ourselves on being able to offer them. So I implore you all to please do what you can so that we're not here in this situation again. And I know a lot of us here are happy to help, be part of committees or do what we can to advocate and help that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just want to go through all of it?
Yeah.
Go through all of it, and then we'll have questions at the end.
We'll have Interim Principal Sullivan present the middle school.
Good evening, I'm Michael Sullivan, the interim principal at the middle school. And you have my slides, Megan?
Yes.
Okay. So I would echo the sentiments that Talib did about how uncomfortable this always is. I did this for 8 years as a superintendent. It's never easy. I also was the main author of the last report about rural schools for the state and funding rural schools. And so I've spent a lot of time really working hard to try and change the bigger picture of things. And the other opening thing I would say is I was a middle school social studies teacher for 17 years and a middle school principal elsewhere for 5 years. So the things we're talking about doing that move away from the middle school model are things that were near and dear to my heart for most of my career, the part of my career I'm most happy about. So to kind of be talking about taking that apart is kind of painful, actually. So I just want to provide you with some clear information for you to wrestle with, and when you're thinking about reducing several $100,000 from a middle school where there's already been cuts, where there isn't any more wiggle room. In fact, there's less than no wiggle room in our exploratory arts as it is already. It's really about least bad decisions, especially for kids. So that's what we're talking about. And the charge to us was to minimize the impact on programs and supports provided to students. So the implications of that charge are that largely, reductions have to come from personnel. And this next bullet is an important one, an assertion we're making, or I'm making. Assigning teachers more sections to teach and thereby reducing the number of teachers needed may be the only realistic way to achieve the necessary level of cost reductions, those $400,000 reductions, without the elimination of courses or student support services. Teaching more sections then, if you do that, if you give teachers more sections, it requires a change in the way the school is scheduled. And if we change the master schedule, it means moving arms away from a traditional middle school model. So I just want to be really clear about those. Do we do this? These are the impacts. And also, I provided you tonight with links to a bunch of support documents, which I hope you'll get a chance to take a close look at, because I won't be able to get into the weeds, and you really need to get into the weeds a little bit to see the impacts of this. Okay, so the next slide. Currently, ARMS is organized into 4 core academic teams, 2 grade 7 and 2 grade 8 core academic teams. Each of those consists of an English, a math, a science, a social studies, and a special education teacher. The district's proposal is to cut one of these teams. That would be 1 English, 1 math, 1 science, 1 social studies, and 1 special ed position, for an estimated salary savings of $70,000 each and $350,000 in total. The resulting team configuration would be, or teams configuration would be a 7th grade team, an 8th grade team, and a split team. The split team would consist of teachers who would teach 2 sections of 1 grade level and 3 sections of the other, and which one was which would depend on enrollment for that any given year for next year. Okay, thank you, Megan. So currently, this is the teaching model. Teachers teach 4 sections of their course. ARMS has a dropped class schedule. There's 6 courses, but every day there's 5, and we drop 1 class, and it takes 7 days to go through that rotation of dropping each class once. So for our teachers, they teach 3 classes a day, 4 days out of 7, and they teach 4 classes a day, 3 days out of 7. So our teachers teach an average of 3.7 hours a day, not including the advisory period, which is about 20 minutes long, but yes, including the guided study period. Teachers at the high school teach an average of 4.5 hours a day. Teachers at the elementary teach an average of 4.6 hours a day. So that's maybe something of concern to you when you're balancing things out. The proposed teaching model that we have here tonight is for teachers to teach 5 sections of their course each day, each and every day, and not having a drop schedule. So this, I tried to, as simply as possible, show you some important comparison information. So periods in a day right now, as I mentioned, there's 5 classes in a day, and one of the 6 classes a student has gets dropped. The proposal would be that there'd be 6 classes every day. The length of a class period now is 56 minutes. The proposal would make it 49 minutes. So it would be reduced by 7 minutes. However, over the course of the year, there would actually be an increase in contact hours in a course by, it's minimal, it's almost exactly the same. In core academic subjects, it would go from 144 hours a year to 147 because you'd no longer have that drop day, 1 out of 7. Exploratory subjects, which are phys ed, health, art, music, drama, and then the band and chorus and so on. Those currently, one of those meets 36 hours over the course of the year, and then now it would be 38. World language would go from 72 hours now to 74. One of the things we're proposing that's a nice bonus for the new schedule would be to have, we could accommodate world languages every day all year long in 8th grade. And it would remain every other day or one semester in 7th grade. So I think that's a change that our world language teachers would like to see that could be accommodated. Courses taken by nothing extra students, and I'm not trying to be obnoxious there. What I mean is the students that are non-special ed, not in ELL, not taking band or chorus or orchestra. That's just a way to kind of simplify the description here. They would all have 4 academic courses. Well, they currently have 4 academic courses, 6 different exploratory courses over the course of the year, and 1 world language. All of that would remain the same in this proposal, so that would not change. Guided study is a period that is right now 34 minutes a day. It's an important time when students get support and enrichment in some of their courses, but it's also a time where students on IEPs, the large majority of them receive academic assistance and an important part of their IEP in their learning. 34 minutes a day is really not sufficient. So if we can accommodate the schedule change, it would be 40 minutes a day, which would be an improvement in that regard. A integral part of middle schools traditionally, although not all of them have them and not all of them do them well, is to have an advisory period. ARMS has a proud tradition of teacher-led advisory. It's 20 minutes a day. We would not be able to have that as a standalone program going forward. So that would be a cost in the proposed schedule. The number of sections taught by core academic teachers, this reinforces what I already said. It would go from teaching 4 to teaching 5 in the core subject areas. For exploratory teachers, there would be an increase of 16 sections they currently teach over the course of a year to potentially up to 20. Which is even more than would be needed. But we can talk about how we might make use of that capacity. In world language teachers, it would be 8 sections to possibly 10 sections, especially for 7th grade. The average number of students taught by core academic teachers, I checked these numbers about at least 3 times to make sure I had this right, is 81 right now. And it would be about 102 or 104, depending on if you were teaching a subject where that split team had 3 sections or it had 2 sections. That's a lot of students. It's not way beyond a typical for middle school, but 104 is a lot of kids to grade papers for and try and accommodate students' different learning styles and so on. I'll just say right here, for me, I think one of the hardest things that this would mean isn't necessarily the additional students, but teaching a class 5 times a day is really hard. What's different than at the elementary or the high school level is it's the same, for a science English teacher, it's the same lesson. This second or third time in the day, you can refine it a little bit, but by the 5th time in the day, it can really sap your energy, kind of. So that's what we would be asking of our core teachers. Team meetings are an integral part of a traditional middle school. In our school, we've retained having 5 days out of 7 where these exist. And in some of the literature I've supplied you, we've got a nice clear PowerPoint presentation that explains what occurs in team meetings and the benefit for both teachers and students and parents, really, of that structure. That would not be possible in the regular school day in this proposal. Perhaps we could have 2 meetings before school on our half-hour time, in a week, but even that would be about 36 hours a year versus 120. So I'm just trying to be really clear about some of these give and takes that we've got here. So just to wrap up for now, important considerations: course offerings, support services, contact time for courses are not adversely impacted for students. You all are going to be worried about 100 more kids going to Chinese immersion next year. It's important to be competitive and to offer as many things as we can. And this proposal tries to steer clear of reducing IEP services or reducing counseling and reducing what we offer. But that's not to say you may decide some of that is more necessary than making the things I just described happen. Teacher workloads, described as substantially increased. Third bullet, teacher time spent teaching is more on par with their colleagues at the elementary and the high school level. The potential for sharing teachers with the high school and for scheduling services provided by outside organizations is much improved when you don't have a schedule where things move and where things are dropped. And increasingly, we need people like speech and language pathologists, psychologists, outside therapists that come and work inside the school, or part-time teachers. It's hard to hire and find and organize those types of supports in our current schedule. Potentially sharing, if you're thinking ahead, if 6th grade is moving into the building, and I know they're not part of the region, but there's a real opportunity there to share some services, and I know it would drive the business office crazy with the accounting of some of those expenses being at the region and some of them being with Amherst, but you may not find that all the 6th graders that come into the ARMS building require like 2 full-time teachers of the different subjects. Like, it may be partial, and so if you have teachers and administrators and special ed administrators and so on that can work across the 3 grade levels, thinking about a schedule that might work for the 3 grades could become really important. And then finally, the loss of traditional middle school structures like regular team meetings, advisory program, looping with the same teams of teachers 2 years in a row would be adversely impacted. And the last thing I would just mention is I provided you with the most recent research article I could find about what middle schools are like across the country right now. Increasingly, districts are finding it very hard to fulfill this model, and people are finding ways to do the best they can with all of those things without some of those traditional structures, unfortunately. So that's a lot. Thank you for being attentive to that.
Thank you, Michael. And so the additional resources, the links are included in the document for everyone for board docs to share. So in terms of the central office position cuts, from the time I entered, there's been restructuring of the central office, and we'll continue to do so. As you know, we, as certain positions left, we consolidated them. For example, we now have a director of curriculum, equity, and instructional supports. We now have a director of operations who's over food services, transportation, and maintenance. So we'll continue to do that. We will have partial reductions of positions that equal about 3.6 FTEs as well. And I want to echo, this is the last slide, so I'll take this time to speak. I want to echo the sentiments of Talib as well as of Michael, and just say that from September we worked as a district team. We started off with the first 4 towns, and it's been a bleak financial situation. But at some point we have to figure out, how do we continue to build an educational system for our students that supports all students? And so we have, I know myself, Shannon, Kate, even all of our principals, assistant principals, have been delving into the numbers, the budgets, and they were charged with looking at programming. How do we sustain programming and in a way that is fiscally responsible for what we're facing, but more so that meets the needs of all students? And that took us to looking at our schedules, looking at equity or equality around ratios in terms of student to teacher ratios. And that's one of the reasons why Michael was able to present the number of instructional hours at the middle school versus the high school and the elementary school. At the high school, I know Talib, Mickey, and Sam worked deeply within the master schedule, looking again at the courses that had the most students and that had the least students, and that's where them and the middle school were able to talk about, well, if we don't offer level 1 at the high school, level 1 should at least be offered at the middle school, which provides that basis in world language. This is not the perfect ideal scenario that I, as a superintendent, principals, or anyone would like to be faced with, because the one thing we know is that children are directly impacted by teachers. That's the first touch point. And so the last thing we would want is for anyone, any educator in any position, even the custodians serve as educators, our cafeteria staff, our office, our clerical, our counselors, we're all educators. So this is not the ideal situation that we would like to be faced with. We've been working with the towns, we've been working with our numbers, but this is the one where the team has come together and figured that we can present the most plausible situation based on the research. Michael has not only served as a middle school teacher, former superintendent, and so Talib and Miki, Sam have worked very diligently on these budgets for the past few years, and I think at this point, we would all like to not be cutting anything else. We'd like to be building on what we have, reshaping and moving forward so that we can too be competitive with the other schools around the area, and more so to show the programming. At the high school, the engineering program is flourishing. At the middle school, there's a lot of great work that happens in terms of the work of the children and the teachers that are occurring in the classrooms. And when you walk, you feel the fact that the culture is alive and we're rebuilding the trust. But there's a lot of work that we can do, but we can't do it without the proper funding. So at this time, we open the floor to the committee for questions.
All right. Deb, you had your hand up first.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. My question about this, I had 2 questions. One is just a blanket question. One is very specific. When you're talking about science classes with sizes upwards of 20, what is the industry or the educational safety concerns regarding having that many students in lab courses?
Which school?
I'm sorry?
Which school? Which principal?
The high school.
Okay. Go ahead.
That's actually a good question. I believe it would have something to do with the size of the classrooms. And I think our classrooms are designed to have just over 20 students. And so when we have to go over them, we do have some classes that have more than 20 students. And some of our AP classes do have more, and some of our CP classes, our college prep classes, do as well. So I don't have a specific number, but again, I think it's based on classroom size.
And then just a general question, I know you answered it, but everybody spoke to this, but I'm going to ask it just straight out. Are any of these changes that we're making aligned with best educational practices, either to what we currently have or better than, or are these changes entirely budget-driven? And maybe that's a question for Dr. Z, I don't know.
So I can start and say that, one, the teams were tasked with making sure that we put forth the best programming possible. The work that they did was driven by the fact that we knew we were facing budgetary cuts, but it was done so that we can adequately provide programming to our students. And so best practice is dependent on what it is that we're trying to promote. I think Michael talked about the different middle school models and what's happening nationwide. I think that the high school did the work to try to adequately continue the programs that we have and even work to determine how they can build that model across. And I think that's where, for example, from a district lens, we are actually looking to bring someone in to support the fact that at the region, how do we align our scheduling, knowing that there is the fiscal issue that we're having, right? And that was one of the things that came up. If they're going to share world language and exploratory teachers, how can we do that on the current model that we're working on? So there is best practice and research that's going forward, I think, as well as looking at our current programs that work and how do we continue that.
So my last question is more of a statement. From what I understand, we're going to be here next year. The guidance from the town that funds 80% of this district is this is at most a 3.5% increase district. So when our level services, whatever they are this year, rises more than 3.5%, we might get an extra 0.5%, but the 3 to 4% is considered, I don't even know the word, untouchable, unchallengeable, unchallenged. So I don't like this more than anyone else does, and I just want to read into the record here and now. Unless there are changes at the town or state level, or miraculously a budget that does not increase the way it most likely will, this is not the beginning, it's not the middle, and it's certainly not the end. So that's.
Thanks, Deb. Sarah?
I have just two clarifying questions at this point, but one is for Principal Siddiq. So in the proposed model, you said students would not be able, high school students could not start Chinese or Latin in the high school. Is it possible they will be able to go to the middle school too, if they wish to? Might the schedules,
The high school student?
the high school who does wish to start Chinese, and if that is offered in the middle school?
No, the middle school is on a block schedule, and the middle school, the high school is on a block schedule, and the middle school does not offer credit-based courses, so they would not be able to.
Okay, thank you. And one for Principal Selvin. You said at the end, and Dr. Z repeated it, that the middle schools are finding it hard to maintain the model or a model. I'm not sure which model. And I'm old enough that I think you're calling the traditional model.
Right.
That's a newer model. But, so.
Yeah, well, depending on how old we are, I experienced it in East Long Meadow in the mid-'70s, what is still called traditional, which is interdisciplinary teams, the structure of those 4 core subjects sharing the same group of 80 to 100 students. Having common planning time for those teams of teachers. We had one of the teams, 7th grade team today, I heard when they got back, had an awesome field trip. They went to UMass, went skating, ate in the dining commons there, had a real good kind of community building thing. Like having those types of experiences is doable because those core teachers could kind of plan a trip like that, and they know their kids well. And so the team meeting structure is an important part of supporting the interdisciplinary teams. Those are, in my mind, the most important pieces. also an advisory program when they work well is a nice thing to have in a middle school. When they don't work well, the research shows you're better off just having better core academic subjects and supporting kids as learners and with their social and emotional learning within their other classes.
But you're saying that schools are finding it hard to continue that?
Yeah,
Do you
the
mean they're
research is really
moving
clear that
financially? Are they moving towards what you're proposing? I mean,
yeah, I think
finding it hard to make.
financially, it is an expensive model to have these teachers, to provide
Mm-hmm.
teachers with this kind of collaboration time in the middle of a school day. It is hard to sustain, and that's happening around the country. And so people are, I think, not for pedagogical reasons so much as fiscal reasons, the model is not being sustained. Yeah.
Thank you. Bridget.
So I think the first thing I wanted to say is I'm having a little bit of residual trauma. You know, it reminds me a lot of last year, and it does not feel good to be in this situation. I think right off the bat, I would hope that as a committee, we can say no to teacher cuts. I think that we just heard the high school principals say they're going to cut counselors when we know that the rates of mental health challenges are rising. They're going to increase class sizes, reduce foreign language, and have less support staff. And then 5 teachers at the middle schools. I've been through rounds since over the last 6 years where they've cut a team at the middle school and they've cut a team at the middle school. And I don't think that you can look at all the issues we've had in this district with that middle school and separate it from the fact that over and over we're cutting a team from the middle school. These things aren't separate things, right? So how are we going to create a space for our kids that work? I was reading what Principal Sullivan had said during Shannon's presentation, because I've had the pleasure of hearing that several times already. And it says really these teams models with the advisory, that wrap around, that looping, those are still best practices. More places are turning away from them, but the unspoken piece is that more places are turning away from them as American school budgets shrink and shrink, right? So I just want to say I've heard from people I know who are teaching in the schools about the class sizes, and they're saying things like, a few years ago at the middle school I had 18 students, and now I have 23, and I miss bullying and since X, I miss that from the rising class sizes. I have 5 kids who speak 5 different languages in my middle school class, and I don't have anyone extra in the classroom supporting them. This is a place now we're going to ask those teachers to do more. So I don't know the thing that I want to say except for no.
I think this is for Michael Sullivan, but it could be for either one. If a kid takes French in 7th grade, and then they decided that they don't want to take French and they'd rather take Latin, is that even a possibility? Or if you want to take Chinese or Latin, do you have to decide in 7th grade and stick with that language for the rest of the time that you're there? Because I think that there's a lot of kids who maybe don't know in 7th grade which language they want to take.
Is that ever doable? Like, no. Yeah, you would have invested a half a year in one subject, and to enter 8th grade, and everybody else has that half a year under their belt, that would be hard to accommodate, I guess. Yes. Thank you for that question.
William.
So I had a couple questions. Just to clarify, I see there's a reduction in the professional staff for the Bright program at the district level, but then there's an increase for the para at the Bright. So could someone speak of what the Bright program would look like in this future budget compared to what it is now?
I think the proposal is for there to be one teacher between the two, one main person between the two buildings, and so the increase in the para educator would allow the para educator to continue the supports in the one building while the individual is shared between both.
So what happens when a student it goes to the Bright Room and there's no teacher there in the middle school because they're now at the high school.
The paraeducator will be present.
And the paraeducator is a licensed social worker to take care of the emotional needs of the kids?
Right now, I don't think the current person, and I'll have to confirm that, is a licensed social worker. I know they have their license, but I'm not sure what the license is in. I think they're licensed as a school adjustment counselor. I have to confirm.
Okay.
I'm not sure, so please don't put that on the record. But you can put it on the record, but I will confirm what they're licensed in. But I'm not sure that that's what they're licensed in right now.
I guess I would question if the Bright program could exist in two buildings with one person in charge of, I don't know. Legally, I just don't know if that could. I would have to say we would need to look at that and look at how that program would exist with one adult in two separate buildings with the parent in the room for the kids' safety and maybe I'm not saying it couldn't be a different program. I just don't know how that program as it is today would exist sharing one staff for two buildings.
It's to the point where it may require some shift and supports from the central office, like we've done with the family center, where individuals who are qualified at the central office will have to go in and provide supports to the schools as needed when emergencies arise. There is no ideal situation here. There is only trying to make do with what it is that we are faced with. So we know that it may not be ideal. Ideally, the central office is located in the middle school. So if something occurs and the Bright instructor is at the high school, then the central office staff will provide that support. We would have to step in and do what we need to do to make sure that our children are served. And that's why we are here, to serve our students. So, but we can walk through, we can review. I'll look at the certifications and present that to you.
Yeah, I would say on a personal level, I know my child has probably spent 2 months in the Bright Room and never attending class. So having that child now with a paraeducator for 2 months without the Bright Room person, I don't know how that would work legally.
But I believe there's a paraeducator in the room with that person now. So it's not that they always have the direct support or services of the individual. They might be interacting with the paraeducator right now as well. Many of our paraeducators are, even though there is a program, for example, in special education or in other programs, even though there is a person who may have PTS or professional teaching status, the paraeducator in these programs are that one-to-one support with many of our students. They interact more with students at more time, like direct contact in classrooms, in those rooms, than many times the teachers do, because that's their direct support. That's the person who goes with them from place to place, following the plan that's outlined by the teacher, by that main individual. So I don't want to undercut or downplay the role that paraeducators play when it comes to educating our students and supporting the work that they do. So I have faith that once they have a proper plan, they're well trained, and they have the requirements and understanding, they can still provide support in this not ideal situation.
Another question quickly is, I see that there's not a line for the assistant superintendent. There's nothing budgeted.
There will not be an assistant
we're-
superintendent. I cannot, with facing a $1.4 million cut, it means a little bit more work from our level. But one of the things that we discussed with the budget team was that there is no way that even as small as the central office is, that I can't in good conscience have the schools taking cuts and the central office not take cuts. And that is a part of the restructuring. That is looking at current positions and current licensures of directors and seeing who can probably serve a multiple role, or how multiple people can serve a multiple role, but there will not be a standalone assistant superintendent. I signed on. It was already cut when I came. I learned that when I came in. I've been doing the work. It has not been easy, but I'm sure my team will step up and we can work together and we can figure it out.
Thank you.
Irv. There you go.
All right, I was told that the host had to unmute me.
Yes.
All right, anyway, this, this is, this presentation is bleak. But two things jump out. One, we cannot cut ourselves out of this. We cannot continue to cut staff and programs. We just can't do that. Two is that we have our hard costs, which are our fixed costs. And a large part of that fixed cost, or about 80% or something like that, are salaries and benefits. And so when you get to a situation like that and you have salaries and benefits, which are a large part, if something doesn't happen with the salaries and benefits, in other words, if they keep increasing every year, while the amount of money, the budget that we have that can go to it keeps being the same, then obviously there's a disconnect. I guess the thing that that I really, really want us all to understand is that this cannot go on. This year especially needs to be challenged in terms of the amount of money allocated from the town for their portion of this particular budget. We, i.e. the school committee and the parents, need to be unified in our approach to the town to say that this cannot stand. We cannot take out of existence a great school system, a great education for our students, and replace it with something incredibly mediocre. That is something that this town and the parents and teachers, staff, school committee must stand up and say, there is and are ways to go forward. But we cannot ask the town to do for us what we don't do for ourselves first. When we've done those things for ourselves first on all areas of the budget, I mean all areas of the budget, including salaries and benefits and programs, then it's go to the town and say, hey, we can't go any further. We go any further, we won't have a school. We won't have a school system. And as far as I'm concerned, we can't go any further now, at this moment. And we need to get our strategies and tactics together to be able to approach the town in a systematic way to say, we need more funds. And that not only do we need more funds, we need that support. Because these are our kids. These are our kids. And if we have to make sacrifices, that is what it means to have kids. You make sacrifices. The town is no different. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I point of clarification?
Yes, absolutely.
I'd like to thank Director Ortiz. William, in response to your question, both the Bright counselors are licensed school social workers. However, to clarify as well, the para-educator, I believe either at the middle school or high school, is currently working on their master's degree in social work. So just so you're aware, and we're not quite sure, and so she's trying to get me as much information as possible. Again, let's not undercut that because their title is para-educator doesn't mean that they don't have the qualifications to support students and to do the work. So we would actually take those things into account.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So, since there's lots of us, we will keep it to the regular public comment of 3 minutes. Please make sure you say your name and your affiliation with the district so our minutes can be recorded correctly. And there are people obviously in the room with us and virtually. So we will alternate from one person in the room to one person online and go back and forth until we are all done. We also received over 20 pages of written public comment that have been attached to the board docs meeting, if anyone would like to read them. I can send them to the committee as well, but they are attached. And we received a bunch of phone calls, but given the people that have come out tonight, I will play those at the end. So if there are smaller ones that need to go to bed or larger ones that need to go to bed, then we can work on that as quickly as we can. Okay. So, all that being said, there is someone who would like to come and make public comment. Miss Georgia. One second, Georgia. So if you are virtual and you would like to make a comment, please use the little raise your hand icon, and Megan will help me go back and forth so we can make sure everybody gets their 3 minutes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. We are all here because we care deeply about the future of our students and the quality of education they receive. While the school committee and Dr. Z has been tirelessly advocating for our schools, the real power lies elsewhere, within the town council, the finance committee, and the town manager who control the budget. It's heartening to think that $1 million was spent on dirt a few years ago. That could have restored jobs and programs, given our district the competitive edge it once had and restoring its reputation as an exceptional public school system. Over the past years, we have seen a troubling pattern, surplus funds that were never shared with our schools. In FY22, there was $4.6 million. In FY23, $6.16 million. And in FY24, $5.7. Despite these surpluses, we're still facing devastating cuts that will impact every student in our district. These cuts would lead to overcrowded classrooms, fewer resources, and diminished support and options. While the school committee and Dr. Z can voice their concerns, they don't control the purse strings. The power to make these decisions lies with Paul Buckerman and the elected officials. If you want to ensure your children receive the opportunities and support they deserve, you must act now. I urge you to contact Paul Buckerman and your town council members to make it clear how urgent this issue is. Together, we can demand the funding our schools need. Reach out to Lynn Greismere at, you can look up her email online. Consider this. The Chinese immersion school is expanding and has been approved to increase enrollment. That means that's going to impact our district as more parents may choose to leave for that option. To maintain the high quality of education this district is known for, we must come together in solidarity. We must raise our voices and make sure children's education doesn't suffer. Let's stand united. Our children's future depends on it. If your election officials do not act now, let your voices be heard at the ballots. As a matter of fact, you may want to put a different government on. If this government isn't working, they may want to change it back because the old government, they cared about education. I also urge you to engage your neighbors, friends, and community members, even those without children in the district. This issue is bigger than just us. It's about social justice and advocating for everyone, especially the most marginalized and vulnerable. It's about ensuring that every child has a chance to reach their full potential, whether that means becoming a doctor, a pilot, or simply being the first in their family to graduate high school and attend college. It's about breaking the cycle of limited opportunities and creating a brighter future for all. Let's make sure our children have the education they deserve. Change comes about because of resistance, and now is the time.
I will say, if you have a comment that you wrote and you want to read, if you want to give it to me, I will upload it to Board Docs as you have written it, rather than making it happen. Hi.
Hello, we are students at Fort River Elementary School and we play in band. And we would really like it if we could please fund our schools. We really like to play it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Mick O'Connor. I am a teacher at the middle school. I am a taxpayer in the Pelham district, Pelham region. I have, I'm at the end of my 18th year in this district. and I'm here to read a letter on behalf of many of my colleagues who are core academic teachers at the middle school. Dear Dr. G, Ms. McIntyre, Mr. Rodriguez, and members of the Regional School Committee, we, core academic teachers at Amherst Regional Middle School, ask you to reconsider the core teacher cuts announced by interim principal Michael Sullivan on Friday afternoon, February 14th. We respect Mr. Sullivan's 8 months of leadership at ARMS, but we deeply wish he had talked with us before this decision. Together, we represent over 200 years of teaching young people in this district and have a comprehensive understanding of what our school and our middle school students need. It is a mistake to cut core teaching positions. Last year, school committee member Irv Rhodes urged ARP's decision makers, make budget cuts furthest away from the classroom. And in this case, the cuts proposed by Principal Sullivan have done the opposite. The cuts began with core classroom teachers, the teachers who teach language arts, mathematics, social studies, and science. When classroom teachers are sick, the school needs to find substitute teachers. The school day can't go on without core academic teachers. When the students are in school for 6 hours a day, we represent 2/3 of their daily learning. Core teaching positions are all-day student-facing positions. These are the positions you should cut last and not first. In the past few years, the district has cut core teaching positions twice. In 2005, we had 32 core subject teachers at the middle school. Principal Sullivan's proposed cuts would leave us with a core teaching staff of only 12. I started in 2005. While these Tier 1 positions have been reduced over the past 2 decades, Tier 2 and Tier 3 special education and support staff positions have ballooned. We urge you to look at the number of positions and the numbers of student-facing hours for all the staff at ARMS and in other areas of the district budget. When the Tier 1 foundation is amply staffed with classroom teachers, class sizes are more manageable, students can receive more direct support from teachers, and we need fewer Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions for students. It is our understanding that Principal Sullivan was tasked with making a schedule for ARMS that was more aligned with the high school schedule. He instead created a schedule without direct input from staff that cut the teams and the core teachers. Is my time up?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And we understand cuts have to be made, but we please want you to consider different ways to make this budget work. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna go for a, you can sit. Alex, can you hear us? Can we hear you?
Oh, yeah, cool.
Excellent, you're up.
Thanks. So my name's Alex Lopez. I am a parent to 3 ARPSians. Also used to work at Summit. I guess I want to just start by saying that I'm really hopeful about the fact that people are starting to acknowledge that this is all predicated on a lie. Like, this all starts with Shannon saying that what the towns told her was that a level service budget was unobtainable. And I think when we did this dance before just a year ago and have done this dance time and time again, there has been bad blood and distrust created by the fact that so often we are then pitting each other against ourselves, trying to say, well, cut this, but save that, but cut this, without ever going back and saying that, no, this isn't unobtainable. I hope that people are outraged at the fact that they're saying that the standard of education that is currently in our building is unobtainable while there are construction crews working on their pet projects around town. The fact that I am learning right now that if my child wants to take a foreign language, they better sign up this year because it may not be available to them again forever. I can't imagine the kids who were sitting at home who thought that maybe they would start Chinese next year. And when we all sit around and just believe this lie that this is unobtainable, we end up doing the work for them. And so I know that this time last year, I saw incredible courage in this body to start and ask themselves, can we just reject this budget? And the good news is that you've practiced that. You've practiced sending it back to the town and saying this is unacceptable. You've also made promises at that point saying this is the work that you will do in the next year so that we don't end up at this point again. And so I am hopeful that before we get to a vote on any level of this offensive budget, that this school committee is ready to look at the town and just state how offensive it is that they want you to do the work of cutting children's education once again. Because it has happened when we told teachers that we could not afford to pay them a living wage. It has happened when we have made cuts in the past. It has happened when the roof leaks at the middle school and we just say, well, we didn't get the grant this year for it. Things need to change. And this is where that starts.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cora Fernandez Anderson. I'm a resident of Amherst, and I'm a parent of a 6th grader at Fort River and a 8th grader at the middle school. So the first thing I want to say is that I can't believe that in the political context that we're in which, you know, all the values that we care for are slashed and there are firings all over at the federal level, we are having a similar situation in the local level. I really feel that in the local level we need to resist, and I really want to encourage everybody in the school committee to say, well, here in Amherst we value education, here in Amherst we value special ed, we value our teachers, we value our students, and we're not going to be cutting, we're going to be like reinforcing the education that we have. As I mentioned, I have an 8th grader, so this is her 2nd year in the middle school, and I know that like the team teaching system has really worked for her. How, you know, the teams are coordinated and the group and the links and networks that are created there. And I'm really disappointed that my rising 7th grader won't be able to, if this proposition, to experience this, if this proposition is in place. She's sitting next here to me, and she was saying, well, advisory is one of our favorite parts in the day because we don't have breaks. So, you know, like that is the moment in which we can relax, we can meet kids, you know, from other groups, we can do activities together, and, you know, get a little bit of energy to then go back to the classroom. So like seeing that the team teaching is not there, that the advisory is being cut in this new proposal is very, very disappointing. And I want my rising 7th grader and all the other rising 7th graders to be able to enjoy that, what I hear is best practice. So what I really just urge you is, as many of them said, and I'm seeing like a lot of also support from many of you in the school committee, just say no to the towns. I am from Amherst. I know we have a surplus, so just tell them use the surplus for the schools, and let's just resist altogether in this very depressing political climate that we're in. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Jennifer?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm here on behalf of the CPAC, the ARPS Special Education Parent Advisory Council. I'm going to read a letter from CPAC. We write as ARPS CPAC Steering Committee to express our deepest concern over the proposed budget cuts, which will impact our most vulnerable students. We urge you to refrain from these cuts as they will adversely affect the quality of our ARPS special education programs. The FY 2026 regional and elementary school budgets outline deficits of $1 million, $1,391,998, and $1,561,314 respectively. Of that amount, nearly 70% comes from reductions in the budget of special education programming. Specifically, the budget outlines cuts to 5 special education and 3 paraprofessional staff at the elementary level, 3 paraeducators at the middle school level, alongside 5 middle school teachers, school counselors, and a reduction in instructional time for the specials and band teachers. When the majority of the cuts come at the expense of our special education programs, we as parents and caregivers of students with disabilities have to ask about the message this sends and what we can hope for our children in the near future. Is a quality education for children with disabilities less valuable or urgent? As you know, our programs have long been struggling. Our district has more students than ever who qualify for IEPs and 504s, and yet we face programs that have less staff than ever as teachers leave for more stable and lucrative positions, and current teachers are strained by larger caseloads in decaying buildings. Many of us struggle constantly to gain compliance of our children's IEPs and 504s. We find it deeply troubling year after year that our regional and elementary school committees focus on special education programming as the primary target of proposed cuts. If this were to happen, be assured that we will plunge an already strained system into full crisis, as we will see failure to comply with our IEPs and 504s as a direct result of budget cuts. To refrain from these cuts is not only the right thing to do, but in the end, it will be the most cost-effective to maintain legal compliance. Please do not complete these cuts. Please say no. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent, thank you.
Hi. My name's Heather Sullivan Flynn. I'm an Amherst resident. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a parent of 2 children who've gone through the ARPS public school system. I'm a teacher at Amherst Regional Middle School. I've been a middle school teacher for over 25 years, the last 22 of them at ARMS. I love teaching middle school. Children 11 to 14-year-olds are a lot of fun to teach. They are curious, they are enthusiastic, they are figuring themselves out. They're changing a lot, physically, emotionally, mentally, hormonally, and their needs are unique. They are not little kids anymore, and yet they are not young adults. Their needs are different from elementary school kids, and they are different from high school kids. Middle school philosophy focuses on the needs of these in-the-middle young adolescents. A significant part of how middle schools work best for these amazing pre-adolescent learners is with teams. Middle school teams are interdisciplinary teams of teachers such as math, science, social studies, and language arts who teach the same heterogeneous group of ideally 75 to 80 students. These teachers meet regularly, plan advisory, collaborate, and communicate about the students' needs and progress in order to meet their needs and help them grow and learn. Teams help students belong, building connections between peers, with teachers, and to the school. We see them and we know them well. ARMS has had teams for over 40 years because that is what works for 11 to 14-year-olds. Currently, we have 4 teams of 90 to 95 students each. Team teachers stay with their students for 2 years, building a strong and stable relationship during a fragile and important age. The current budget cuts planned for ARMS will eliminate these teams. We now have around 370 students at ARMS. Think of this, we're only gonna have 3 core subject teachers for those 370 students. So that's 3 science teachers. Each science teacher would teach about 123 students who are not connected to a team. Our science teachers would love class sizes of 20. Without the connected experiences of teams, middle school students' experience would be more isolated and disconnected. Local headlines in recent years remind us that middle school students are vulnerable, and it's our responsibility to protect them and to give them the best middle school experience that we can, and you cannot do that without teams.
Carrie Spitzer?
Hello.
Hi, Carrie.
My name is Jonah Fitz. Oh, shoot. Can I speak?
Yes.
Okay. Hello. My name is Jonah Fitzer.
Nope,
I
keep going.
am a ARMS middle school student. I am here to express my annoyance, let's say, with the plans that are going through. Thinking about getting rid of a team is preposterous. You have to. Classes are already packed enough with 20 kids in a room with 17 desks. Think about if you had to add an additional 5 to 10, it will make the day so much more stressful and just add a ton more pressure on kids like me, our lives. So please, think about the people who are living this experience. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Danielle Seltzer. I'm an English teacher at the high school, and I'm reading this statement on behalf of our department. First, I want to say all of these cuts hurt students in one way or another. The purpose of this statement is to illuminate how they hurt our department specifically and how they have hurt them continuously. As you consider the current budget proposals, we, the English department at ARHS, urge you to think about what kind of school you actually want us to have. Many of us began teaching at ARHS decades ago when there were 14 full-time English teachers for a little over 1,400 students and an average class size of 18 to 22 students in a much-loved trimester schedule. We were able to transfer knowledge from veteran teachers to new teachers, sustain robust elective offerings, double down on racial and social justice in our curriculum, support our students, and collaborate frequently. Today, there are the equivalent of 6 full-time English teachers for around 800 students. Out of those 6 English teachers, only 1 actually teaches English full-time. 5 English teachers currently teach Tier 2 support classes, special education classes, in addition to mainstream English courses, including Reading Support, Prep Academy, the STEPS English course, and Topics in English. The proposed 0.33 cut to the English department is actually much larger than meets the eye because of this. To produce this cut, 2 sections of Reading Support and 2 sections of Prep Academy, both Tier 2 interventions, held by veteran English teachers, would be cut, and they would absorb 0.67 of the current teaching load of Amanda Lewis, who's sitting right here. The remaining 0.33% of Amanda's position will be cut as well. Amanda Lewis has worked in the district since 2016. She formerly ran the Writing Center, which was a Tier 2 intervention that's been cut. She's a beloved teacher. She currently teaches 4 courses at ARHS. She teaches 9th grade English. She teaches 10th grade English. She teaches every senior LGBTQ plus literature class elective, and she teaches the creative writing elective. She's also the advisor to the Sexuality and Gender Alliance, the Asian American Association, and extensively supports students with post-career planning and college essay writing in a regular flex block. She voluntarily offers that workshop. Make no mistake, to produce what looks like a 0.33 cut, 100% of a person will walk out of the doors of our building, and 2 Tier 2 support programs will be completely or partially terminated. These are the massive ramifications of a cut that on paper seems small, but on the ground will have a massive impact on student learning and well-being. We have been here before. Each year, budget cuts mean that rather than devoting our energy to the vision of what we can offer our students, we spend the second half of the year scrambling to try to do other things so that we can all save our jobs. This is not sustainable, and this should not be the job of classroom teachers. We stand in solidarity with every other department, all of you, who are doing the same thing. They are stretched just as thin, and we implore you, the school committee, to say no and reject this proposal. We will stand behind you against another year of cuts that will continue to devastate our students. Thank you so much.
Allegra Clark?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
So my name's Allegra Clark. I am a graduate of Amherst Regional High School, class of 2003. And I am the parent of a Wildwood 2nd grader and an incoming Wildwood kindergartner. And it kind of breaks my heart to be here again. seeing my son talk to my daughter about all the great things he gets to do at Wildwood, and me thinking about all the great things I got to do in high school that are no longer options for our students because the budget cuts that have come year after year. So I really appreciate what Irv said and what many of the commenters have said. And I would ask that the school committee, because you've done it before, take a stand and say no to the proposed cuts, to the proposed budget, and send it back to the town. Because we know that there's money sitting in the town that is surplus money, free cash. And I know that they say it has to go to capital, but I think we're in a really big crisis. I don't think that the schools can afford any more cuts at any level. And the schools are the ones year after year that are on the chopping block. There have never been proposed cuts to DPW. There have never been proposed cuts to the fire department. The only proposed cuts to the police department were to transition 2 positions over to the Crest department, which recently opened. And so the town isn't facing any of the similar strain in terms of positions being cut that we see year after year in the schools. So I ask that you say no to this budget, present a level services at the very minimum budget back to the town, and tell them they have to find the money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, I gotta put these things on now. Good evening, my name is Rich Farrow. I'm currently an 8th grade science teacher at ARMS. I've been working in the district for 21 years as a teacher, dean of students, coach, athletic director, and last year as an interim assistant principal and principal at ARMS. I also grew up in this community and attended the Amherst Junior High, where we benefited from the team teaching model in 7th grade in the late 1980s. We've operated with this model ever since. What compelled me to speak tonight is the agonizing feeling that the middle school model is slipping away from us. The driving force seems to be budgetary. We've faced significant budget deficits for more years than not over the past 20 years and have never veered away from the middle school model. We have the least number of students per grade in more than 50 years in our community, which has impacted how we organize ourselves. That being said, we've always found a way to offer our students an experience that includes the team model, exposes them to a wide array of exploratory options, languages, and music, while at the same time providing the support staff needed to help them navigate the challenges of being 12, 13, and 14 years old, a time I don't think any of us ever wish to return to. Last year, we were asked to make similarly large cuts to the region. As administrators in both buildings, all of us with significant historical perspective, we were able to be creative in our proposed cuts. Of course, they hurt. There's no question about that. But at ARMS, we were also able to fix some of the inefficiencies that had arisen due to years of administrative turnover. When I read the proposed cuts to the region in the budget book, I was shocked. The high school, once again, was very thoughtful and creative about the proposed cuts, spreading them out, keeping them away from the positions that directly impact students in their classrooms every day. The cuts to support services will still be painful and felt by students and families. Again, there's no question about that. When I read 5 middle school teachers, I couldn't believe that was it. $70,000 for each one for a total of $350,000. That's our portion. We're done. That was a huge wow to me. That's an entire team of core teachers, as Mr. Sullivan has said, plus 1 special education teacher, or our entire exploratory department, or all of our language and music teachers, if you want to look at it that way. I realize there are many constraints to making budget cuts, especially within our current enrollment, but I know for a fact that we can be more creative than this when looking at the middle school budget. One clear example. In 2008, we had close to 800 students at ARMS, with 1 principal and 2 assistant principals. Each assistant principal dealt with discipline for 1 grade. I did that job for half a year when Diane Chamberlain was out on maternity leave. The following year, we cut 1 AP position and replaced it with a dean of students who did all the discipline for both grades. I know that because that was me as well. Fast forward to 2025. We have 366 students at ARMS with less than That's less than half that we had in 2009. We still have the same admin structure, a full-time principal, full-time assistant principal, and a dean of students who's not technically admin, but it's the exact same structure that we had when we had double the number of students. Just saying. I did the job last year. There was plenty of work to be done. I'm not saying that anybody's sitting around like not doing anything as a dean of students and as an assistant principal, but I'm not sure how we can like not say that there's other places we can look within our school for cuts besides cutting core classroom teachers. Also like to quickly point out that the team meeting time that Mr. Sullivan was talking about, right, that was so important to what we do, that's not included in our teaching time of 3.7, I think was what it was, right? But that has always been within the model. That has been considered our teaching time as well, even though it's our meeting time. So I implore the administration to take a step back, dig into the numbers again, and come up with a better solution that doesn't gut our faculty to a point where the middle school model itself is in jeopardy. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Patel. I'm an Amherst resident for 17 years. Canvassed for some of you. I'm a taxpayer. I'm an ARPS educator, but I'm actually here because I'm the parent of two young adults who are in their 20s who have benefited from our schools. In fact, many of the people here are faces that I recognize. And so that's one piece. And you know, I've had the pleasure to observe my children blossom into their adulthood, and this is what I want to reflect on, because one went to the university, but the other didn't. And both are successful. So that's really something in testament to our Amherst schools. They're both alumni from our schools. And that's the question that you really ought to be asking yourself. Can a child from our schools leave our doors and be able to be successful? And I can tell you, yes, with all that firm, resounding, help me here, what's the word? Certainty, thank you, certainty and confidence, that yes, they can. It's because the educators, and the ones that I've seen here, and you know, even ones that I've never met, these educators are dedicated. They provide well-rounded education. Their teachers are facilitating conversations and guiding their imagination. The arts, the music, it's everything. It's everything that we've heard this evening. There's even conflict and witnessing conflict in our schools, that the students are participating in the management of those conflicts. And it doesn't even have to be some kind of issue between kids. It could be a conflict happening in the district, and they're witnessing it, and they're watching these great educators here helping each other, working it out, figuring out how do we resolve conflict. I can say, and I am testament to watching my young adult children benefit. And so I agree what I've heard here before from others. We don't have to take a cut. And in fact, I'm saying, don't take the cut. It's in our benefit. My family came here for the schools. So don't take the cut. It doesn't have to be that way. We can be creative. And I agree with Irv Rhodes. Ask the town for more funds. I'm a taxpayer. I know how much I pay. It's a lot. I would much rather see it go to our schools. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Prindle, and I'm a mom of 3 kids. I have a freshman at the high school, a 3rd grader at Crocker Farm, and our 7th grader is currently at PVPA. He was at Crocker Farm and would have come to ARMS this year, but we were aware last year that they were non-compliant in servicing the IEPs of students on the autism spectrum because there was no SLP on staff at the middle school. And our son needs his services through his IEP. And they were able to service it at PVPA, and that's why he left this school district. However, he loves theater and drama, and we really hope to bring him back for the excellent program at the high school. However, hearing that there's more cuts proposed and cuts at the middle school that include a special education teacher as a parent of a special ed child, and also future cuts coming down the pike that may affect special ed at the high school next year is very upsetting for me. Also, I want to say that our 9th grader is thriving at the high school and is in the orchestra, and the music program in this town is exceptional. And I know that the cuts that you're going to be talking about tomorrow pertain to the elementary music budget again. And my husband and I are both professional music educators. We own a music school, and it's an issue of equity. When you take away from the elementary music education, it prevents children that can't afford taking private lessons from access to instrumental instruction. But down the road, that's going to just destroy the program that's here at the high school. My son is going with all of his friends in the orchestra and the choir and the band. They're going to Montreal in May, and they're going to perform at McGill University, and they're going to get feedback from some of the greatest clinicians in classical music in the world. And the fact that this opportunity might not be available when my daughter gets to the high school is devastating. And that would happen if we have music cuts to the budget. So I just echo everyone else. Like, we have to stop cutting. And also, like, last night Congress voted to take away Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security and SNAP benefits. Schools are the safest place for these kids, and we can't keep cutting from the schools. So as a local community, we have to stand up. I don't want my taxes going to Rotaries anymore. I want them going to the school district. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Oh, okay.
So I'm Vincent O'Connor. I've lived in this town for 50 years. Between 2005 and 2014, I worked with 4 neighbors' kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, a boy and a girl from 2 separate families, one family from Cape Verde, whose kids were the immigrants, and another from Cameroon, where the parents were the immigrants. I'm very familiar with these schools. I went to they were all athletes. I spent some days from 3 to 11 transporting kids, going to their events and to all their classroom stuff. You have my comments about the town's situation. The biggest problem that this school district faces is the fact that for the last 3 or 4 years, not only were there surpluses developed, but the manager during the spring budget system, which we are now about to enter, lied, consciously, deliberately lied, both to the city council and to the school committees. That has to stop. And 2 things need to happen. One, you need to take your budget out of the manager's hands. It does not belong in a tightly bound budget that if the council does what they're legally able to do, which is to increase the regional school budget, they have to make cuts to other parts of the budget to keep that budget in thing. This budget does not belong in the manager's budget. This budget belongs as a separate vote by the town council. And you ought to insist on it. It is not legally part of anything that the manager has any right to put in a balanced budget. Not a single legal right does he have to do that. And if you don't fight for that, you will have a difficult time, because when he brings forth a budget on May 1st and all the hearings are held, by the time you get to the point where the school committee may be willing to change the numbers for the regional school budget, they will be in a situation where in a few weeks they will have to find equivalent cuts to to the programs that he supervises. So you've got to get the budget out of his budget. And you have to tell our $10,000 a year city councilors that they are not going to be there come next November if they continue this process. Finally, I want to say something about the presentations of the middle school principal. It was the most unempathetic, lacking in feeling for students and teachers that I have heard come from any administrator in this district. I heard a wonderful presentation last night from the administrators at the Crocker Farm School. This was entirely lacking. This man cannot lead the middle school community into battle on behalf of their budget. He cannot. And the fact that he issued termination notices to teachers and stood here and said nothing about it, and the teachers had to inform you of that, I think is disgraceful. That man ought to, his last day in the school system ought to be tomorrow.
We don't have any control over that.
I
so
understand,
it's
but
not
I am
for us.
speaking to the person, she is right here. That man cannot lead the middle school
Point of
community
order.
to fight for its budget.
Point of order. I don't think it's appropriate to attack people in the audience during public comment period.
I think it is entirely inappropriate.
No,
I listened to his presentation.
Excuse me.
I have every right to say what I
Mr.
did.
O'Connor, wait, your time is up. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much.
Is there someone online?
Yes.
Oh.
Dan?
Hi, thank you. I was trying to wait my turn. Yeah, so my name is Dan. My family's been paying taxes in this town for over 40 years. My brother and I are products of the Amherst schools. I was actually a classmate of Rich Farrow's in high school. I'd like to say, one of many curious and thoughtful students raised by legendary Amherst teachers like Brian McNamara in the halls of Wildwood Elementary, and I think he'd be rolling in his grave today. Mac's teaching led me to the classrooms of Gaylord and Jan Salisbury, whose influence led me to receive a degree with honors at the University of Michigan, and frankly, they helped shape the course of my life. During COVID, my wife and I left Los Angeles with our son, who has significant special needs and who's known by a number of the people who are on this call. We moved because I promised my wife that this was a town that, over all other things, prized education. I mean, of course it does, right? We're literally the home of 3 universities. So back to our son. He's a student in the ILC at Wildwood, my old school. And this kid has made more progress in the past 6 months than in any 2 years of his life to date, thanks in no small part, maybe entirely, to the incredibly dedicated team of educators and paraprofessionals whose jobs you are proposing to cut. At least one of those people has already been told that they will be terminated. We, my family, all of you, innumerable other kids, owe them an incalculable debt, and you're willing to callously put these people on the street, and this just cannot stand. Every one of us in this meeting, whether in the room or at home with our children, is aware of the chaos currently underway in the federal government and the nation at large. We all know that we cannot make a difference there, at least not now, but we can make one here. Reject this budget. Tell Paul, tell Lynn, and the rest of them with the town that they must provide the dollars for education that literally define this town and its experience and all of us. Thanks to his bravery, I already know where Mr. Rhodes stands, and I'm grateful for that. So with the last few seconds or minute that I have here, I'd like to ask the members of the committee who are willing to reject this cut, or at least to go back to the town, to raise their hands.
No, unfortunately, we can't make those kind of declarations.
Beg your pardon?
We'll vote in a month, right?
Point of order.
Yep.
So, respectfully, we are not allowed to respond to public comment. I know I'm making that point of order in doing so, but that is the structure of all of these school committee meetings. So,
Thank you, Deb.
And I'll just note that Mr. Rhodes was willing to make that statement earlier. I think it's within your rights to make statements of your own.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Yvonne Steinman. I'm a resident in Florence, Massachusetts, and I teach art at Wildwood Elementary School. I also co-facilitate the LGBTQIA Art Club. I'm here speaking tonight about the proposed cuts to our already stretched schools. Amherst does have the resources to fund, and not just some stretched, bare bones program. Amherst has the resources to fund thriving schools, programs that serve all of our students with all of their abilities. As the school committee, you have the positions of power to make sure that our schools are places that families want to come to, that students love to learn and grow in, and that teachers are excited to come to and work in this district. Please listen to all the voices and testimony that you've heard today and in emails and voicemails. Please listen to everyone. We want to be proud of being part of the Amherst Regional Public Schools.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening. Okay, thanks. Hi, my name is Irene LaRoche, and I've had the honor of being a social studies teacher at Amherst Regional Middle School since 2003. I am here again. You've seen me a lot and heard me advocating for our staff and our students, and I'm saddened to be returning here for another stressed budget cycle. I was talking to a colleague about what I would say tonight, and I was like, I don't know what to say anymore. And they're like, well, just pull up your notes from last year. And that sucks, because actually I did, and I'm going to share it with you. So, budgets are challenged in many communities as public schools are stretched thin, and you know that, and we know that, and I've appreciated how we've worked together to address it. I need us to continue doing that. We will fight with you if you will fight for us. You know that the way that public schools are funded is not sustainable, and that the funding falls short in providing what we need for an equitable, high-quality education for all. Yet, we at Amherst Middle School have been striving to continue to do more with less. I'm here tonight to tell you the cuts we're facing for next year, they will devastate our program. We will not be able to do it. I've never said that with such certainty. In the last couple budget cycles, middle schools lost 4 core teaching positions, core subject areas of math science, ELA, and social studies you've been hearing about tonight. The direct result of those cuts, increase of 20% in our class sizes. The averages that you heard from Principal Sullivan, they don't do justice. 25, 26, 27 students in a class. That's what we have. Last year you heard about these impacts. I'm going to share some of those notes. Each team is a home base for the students. The cuts to core staff, they make that home base more challenged. We have less time to build the relationships with the kids that those kids need us to do for them. Core teachers have 1 prep period of less than an hour. The rest of our day is spent with students. We are the ones who can't pee. Okay, that's what happens. I've talked with nurses for things I don't need to discuss because we cannot go to the bathroom because we're with kids all day. A significant part of our time doing the work that we're paid for is done outside of our contracted and paid time. planning, grading, communicating with families, almost all of that occurs for me in my house after my own children go to bed. The core subject areas have some of our most veteran staff. Amanda's been here since 2016, and we're going to cut her job. I teach teachers at universities. I'm off script, you guys. It is so hard to learn this dynamic job. And you're going to get rid of somebody who's put in that time. By the time you hit like year 3, you're like, I think I can do this. Year 5, you're like cooking with gas. You're going to get rid of somebody who's been here. And that is true of all of the core cuts. We're talking about people who have been here for a long time, who know how to do the job, who are licensed and experienced. And oh, no way, my 3 minutes? Sarah Bess. Guys, I'll just send it to you. It's not possible. We cannot do this. You need to say no. We will continue to fight with you. We're going to do something about the world. We're going to start here.
Oh, God, please. Sarah Bass, I just want to say one thing. Irv, everybody's been giving Irv the props. I'm not giving Irv any props because he said the last year, he says, oh yeah, cut furthest away from the classroom. And when the school committee was trying to do that, he was the one that voted it down. So Irv needs to put, he needs to stand behind that. Irv, I'm calling you out.
We have half
We
an
have
hour.
Ellen Gadira online.
Oh, Ellen Gadira?
Yes, can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
Hi, thank you. I'm Ellen Gadara, mom of 2 kids in elementary school at Crocker Farm. And my husband and I are writing as deeply, or speaking, I guess, as deeply concerned parents of elementary school students in Amherst. When we look at the regional budget for FY26, we wonder what will be left for the children who are at the middle school next year. And we fear the continual degradation of the education for our children, or that our children will receive when they begin middle school in the next few years. The proposed cuts are drastic, devastating, and they are not in keeping with our values as a community. Our middle school has been in turmoil, and our students do not deserve these cuts. During these times of mental health crisis for so many of our teens, our counseling team size should be increased, not decreased. And our wonderful ARPS educators need to be fully supported, not overworked and stressed by creating larger classes, by reducing the middle school staff by 5 teachers, losing a partial science educator and a partial world language educator, loss of time for Prep Academy. Paraprofessionals in the middle school and high school and Summit provide critical support to our teachers and staff. IEPs and 504s cannot be fully implemented if the staff aren't there to fulfill their requirements. And this puts the district in jeopardy of maintaining legal compliance with special education. Most importantly, the true impact of all of these cuts will be on our students and will be felt from years to come. Larger class sizes, less teachers, less support staff, and a community that is less educated. What has happened? Our town has been one that always put education first. Amherst was known for having great schools, provided all children with an excellent education and opportunities. This was why we and many families have moved here to what was known as well-known as a wonderful school in the district in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. That has changed. One of us is an ARHS graduate, and he has watched as our school system becomes more and more degraded each year. And over the last few years, we've seen our regional and elementary schools lose important positions every year. Our children and our collective future will suffer the most. Please do not accept a budget that has such drastic cuts. Find a way to do the right thing for our children and our community. And I echo the comments before. Let's go back to the town council and Paul Bachman and tell them we need to fund our schools. Thank you for all you do as the school committee members. We appreciate you. Ellen and Andre Gadara.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Mitchell. I have a 7th grader at ARMS, and we'll have a 6th grader who will be at ARMS next year. I have a lot of thoughts and concerns about the middle school, but I will email that to you because I do not have those thoughts together at the moment. What I want to say tonight is that I think we are in desperate need in Amherst for a community-wide conversation about the future of education here. And I think that has not been able to happen. I think that you all have not been able to have that conversation, and I think as families, we have not been able to have that conversation, because anytime we raise concerns about the schools to the town, we are met with deflection, we are met with misleading comments, we are met with shrugs, and we are met with frustration. And it's frustration at the inconvenient fact that education is expensive, that it's expensive to educate our kids. And the fact is that a lot of other things in Amherst are also inconveniently expensive. But it only ever seems to be that education is what's seen as optional. And I really think that that is something that we need to have a community-wide conversation about so that we can address and potentially change. We need to hold our elected officials accountable for the language that's in the master plan about high-quality education and adequate staffing. We need to hold our state officials accountable for supporting us. Mindy Dom has yet to put forth or support any bill this cycle that would address funding in our public schools. And I think that if you go to bat for the families, for the educators who are all here, I think you will find ample support in the community to support you in asking for a budget that actually maintains the quality of education in our schools rather than degrades it. So I appreciate all of you and the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's my turn?
Yep,
Okay.
you're up.
Hi, my name's Norm Price. See if I can get my notes straight here. I began teaching at Amherst Junior High School in 1990, and I retired from Amherst Middle School in 2023. I'm a taxpayer in Amherst and the parents of 2 kids who went through the schools. I'm also proud to say I started in time to have Rich Farrow in my class. When I started in 1990, grade 8 was essentially a junior high model, essentially the model that's being proposed tonight in 2025. As people have said here, really more better than I can, one of the most important jobs of a teacher is to get to know students well. In a junior high school, which is what we're basically going to have if we make these cuts, my understanding of students was limited to the 50 minutes I had with them each day. The advisory, the interdisciplinary teams, the planning times, these things which are the cornerstones of a middle school, these middle school structures essentially are designed to increase our understanding of students. For example, in team meeting, you couldn't imagine what a joy it was to meet with other teachers who had the same kids and have a chance to talk about the students I was working with, to share insights and really to deeply understand the kids. And I can't say this, I don't know the mathematical formula here, but working on teams, my knowledge of students increased exponentially over what I had working in a model that's being proposed tonight. So when you cut these structures, you are exponentially cutting how much teachers know about students. So middle school structures were brought to the region by a visionary administration and a visionary school committee. They convinced the taxpayers to support schools through tax overrides. This was an expensive program. Before I got there, people had worked for decades to bring this to fruition in the middle school. It was funded. And losing it, what that means is you guys and the town, right, and the people that control the purse strings, we are going to be sending our schools back to 1990, okay? I was there when the middle school sign was put on the school, right? They took down the junior high school sign and they put the middle school sign. If the town doesn't support teams at the middle school, it appears we're all going to be there when we take that sign down and we're going to put up the junior high school sign again. And that means we're going to get exactly what we pay for there, because we're not going to understand kids in the way we know them now with all these team structures. So I know you guys are in a huge bind, but do what you can and talk to these people who control the purse strings to make it happen. So thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much for coming and staying. We do have some voicemails to listen to.
Can we take a 5-minute recess?
Yes.
A 3-minute recess? Go on, play the voicemails. I'll be back.
Yes.
Yes, we have a break.
Yes, we have a lot of voicemails.
Oh. No.
Do we need a 3-minute break or
I'm
no?
not sure if we're breaking.
Bridget?
Sarah Bess, just while you're getting the voicemails, I think, like, for people in the audience, we should let them know we had 50 people in the room, 46 people online, and so much voicemail that the voicemail system went down, so we don't even have all the voicemails that people wanted to leave. Right? I mean, it's important, the context. I did not know that was possible.
Hi, this message is for the Amherst College Regional School Committee meeting budget hearing on 2/26. My name is Amber Kendall Martin, and I'm the parent of 2 children in the Amherst schools. I'm extremely distressed to hear about the proposed budget cuts to our regional schools. In the proposed budget, they count a total of 10 full-time student-facing teacher or paraeducator positions eliminated across our regional schools, not to mention elimination of 2 part-time teaching positions and 3 other student-facing positions. These cuts are absolutely
Excuse me, everyone, we're playing the voicemail, so can you please keep it down?
Any cuts to our teachers or paraeducators. I respect and appreciate the work that the regional school committee has done thus far in collaboration with the 4 towns to get the budget conversations going early this time around. However, in this process, as far as I can tell, a model for the budget and the 4 towns' contributions was never presented in which the schools were fully funded without any cuts to student-facing positions. This is a grave mistake, and I'm sure in no small amount a result of the signals that the town of Amherst has given as to how much the town is willing to allocate, which is unfortunate. With federal cuts to education looming and a federal government that clearly does not value education, it is more important than ever that we reaffirm our commitment to public education here by fully funding our regional schools. As members of the Regional School Committee, I ask you to once again do your duties as school committee members and pass a budget that fully funds our regional schools with no cuts. You all were elected into your positions because we have entrusted you to protect the well-being of our public schools and our children, not the bottom line of the Amherst budget or other things that the town council has chosen to prioritize. As our representatives, I ask you to represent us and vote for the budget that our schools need, not one that assumes drastic, unsustainable, and unworkable cuts that has been presented to you and us as the public. Please do not allow our public schools to be decimated on your watch. And after you do that, I look forward to advocating with you at the Amherst Town Council level for the funding necessary for our schools and our children. Our children deserve it, and we owe it to them. Thank you.
Dear school committee members, this is Nina Mankin. My family has lived in Amherst for over 60 years, and I have watched as our schools have gone from being the very best in the state to barely reaching the median. I'm calling to ask you to work with the superintendent to create a budget that cuts the least student-facing positions possible so that our tax-paying families and residents can help fight for more municipal resources to support our children. I understand that cuts must be made, but the amount allocated by the town of Amherst is insufficient to meet educational standards that we must fight for. We have lost hundreds of students to charter and private schools, and that is about to get worse as Chinese immersion expands by 100 students. It is in our fiscal and community best interest to prioritize our schools' excellence, not place them on the chopping block. Please create and pass a budget that forces the towns to act in the best interest of our children and our community. Thank you for all your work.
Hello, my name is Brian Chang. I've been a resident of Amherst in District 1 for 7 years. I'm a father of 2 young children who will attend Amherst Public Schools. And I'm also a professor at UMass Amherst, and I'm deeply entrenched in education within this area. When I moved to Amherst, I was attracted to the public schools because I had heard so many great things about education in Massachusetts and Amherst specifically. But I'm deeply frustrated and troubled to hear about the proposed budget cuts to the schools. Reducing financial support is opposed to what we value in Amherst. I urge you to send higher budgets to the town council and appeal for more funds. Valuing education in our children benefits everyone. Thank you.
My name is Lisa Komorowski, and I've been a resident of Amherst in District 1 for over 7 years. I'm the mother of 2 children who will attend Amherst Public Schools starting this fall. And I'm also a professor at UMass Amherst and a very strong advocate for access to quality publication for everyone in our region. In part, I moved my family to this area because of the quality of the public K-12 education in Massachusetts and Amherst specifically, and I've been really excited to join this community when my oldest enters kindergarten this fall. So I'm deeply frustrated to hear about the proposed budget cuts to schools, which will hamper the quality overall of the education for all of the children, but especially disproportionately affect those who are in the greatest need for it. I'm strongly opposed to these cuts, and I strongly urge you to send higher budgets to the town council and appeal for more funds. Valuing education in our children benefits our entire community and is a core part of who we are in this region. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Allegra Clark. I am a graduate of Amherst Regional High School, and I'm a parent of a current 2nd grader at Wildwood and a future kindergartner at Wildwood. I'm calling because I am strongly opposed to any Hi, this message is for the Amherst School Committee for their meeting today, February 25th. My name is Amber Cano Martin.
That was yesterday's.
Hello, this is a message for the school committee. My name is Jenny Arch. I'm an Amherst resident with a student at Crocker Farm, and I am imploring you to vote for.
I think those are yours for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, my name is Joy Bowman, and I had 2 children to go through the Amherst Public Schools, class of 2005 and class of 2010 from the high school. And I just am calling to support the budget that will not end up leaving us with fewer teachers and fewer programs for our students. Our children had a wonderful experience in the public schools, and I think that children in this town deserve to be served. And so I hope that the committee will consider this seriously and make sure that the next generation will be ready for the problems of this world that will face them. Thank you.
I think, oh, no, here we go. Just kidding.
Hi, my name is Arlie Gould. I was put to your voicemail because the school committee public comment line said that it was full and couldn't take any more messages. So this would be a message for the public comment line for the school committee.
and I am calling to ask the school committee to do as much as it can to support the schools budgetarily. I am not a teacher. I don't have children in the school, but I am a former public school teacher and I worked in Springfield. And I just really value education. And I would like to say that as a resident, a tax-paying resident, I am very happy to have my taxes go to support the schools of our town. And I would much prefer they went to that than an overblown library project. So anyway, I very much support putting money as much as possible and advocating for money as much as possible for our schools. Thank you. Oh, my name is Arlie Gould from Amherst. Thank you.
Okay, I think that actually might be it. Jennifer.
I have a question, if I may. Can you share with us, like, what is your plan or vision for, like, what's our timing for this committee in terms of discussing and voting on the budget?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, as the
Okay.
chair. So we have, I assume we have meetings on March 11th and March 25th?
Yes, I anticipate we'll have conversations at both of those meetings.
Okay. And so do you anticipate we would you think we're probably not going to vote on March 11th, but or would we? Or would we vote on March 25th?
Yep.
I would like, if there is a suggestion, for there to be a deep discussion on the 11th, and adequate feedback for the team so that we can have the proper budget ready for the 25th.
Okay.
I know that we couldn't discuss as much as we wanted this evening, but myself and the team, we do need some feedback around positions and thought process and a budget. And I know we usually plan for meetings, but I think that would be an adequate time to discuss it, allow myself and the district team to go back. Also, I know that we're going to have some discussions. The union did ask to have some discussions around, what needs to be done. That would give enough time for us to go back and then 2 weeks to come back and present the region with an adequate budget.
Thank you.
Yep. I know we will have to, I think voting on the 25th still gives us enough time to work with our towns to make sure they have enough time to have their warrants and all of those deadlines and stuff. But so that was my plan. More conversation both days, but not voting to the 25th. Okay. Anything else? I wanted to say a special thank you to, Dr. Z's team for all the work they put into doing this, and then also to our public for coming out. We had 50 people in the room, another almost 50 online, 6 voicemails, plus probably some we don't have yet, and more than 20 pages worth of public comment. So we very much appreciate everybody's feedback. Yep, did you?
I was going to say thank you to the team because I don't feel like we had this much information at this time last year. So I really appreciate the effort that the team has put in to put this together. And it's much more thorough for us to look at and really digest the numbers than what we've been given in the past. So thank you.
Yes. Excellent.
I have a question.
Yeah, Anna?
How have you had any additional conversations with Amherst, I don't know, council members about what they're actually willing to do, or if they've made any changes in their estimations about what they're willing to provide? Because there's been a lot of pushback. There's been a lot of, what I'm seeing in the future is that there will be more. And it would be good to be closely in touch with that group to see how far we can get them to move, because I don't see us being able to support a 4% budget at this point. And so we have to figure something out, and we need to be talking with all of the towns before we get there.
I know, and she did have to drop off, so
Yeah.
Shannon has been in rigorous conversations with all of the towns. If I'm not speaking with a town representative, Shannon is engaging with them repeatedly. There is not much movement on that 3.5 to probably 4%. I don't see it. There is a BCG meeting on March 5th. And so we probably will get some updated information around insurance and different things. We probably could talk some more, and I have to split hats because I not just talk about the region, but I also talk towards Amherst at those meetings. But it would take for all towns to come together, and honestly, it may take the region to vote a different budget outside of the percentages that was presented.
Irv?
Go ahead, unmute. He's not unmute.
So what it does is I press the button, then he has to.
Irv,
Thank
unmute.
you.
Okay, he's good.
All right, someone just unmuted me. All right, thank you. Two things, well, actually one. The BCG meeting that Dr. Z mentioned is an important meeting coming up on March 5th. The elementary school, Amherst Schools, is represented by myself and Deb. And the regional schools represented by Tillman. And this particular meeting is really critical and pivotal for us to be able to present our position in a very strong manner with some backup information. I know that, I believe that there's going to be a request for Dr. Z to meet with the elementary side of this. And I'm not sure about Tillman and in relationship to the region side of this, because we cannot go in that meeting without having ourselves together in terms of how we are going to present what the schools need.
Thank you, Irv. All right. Anything further? Anybody want to make a motion to end the night? Jennifer.
I move we adjourn.
I will second that. Bridget.
Aye.
Jennifer.
Yes.
Anna.
Aye.
William.
Aye.
Sarah.
Aye.
Irv.